Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the thrilling Vaughn Manor, where Roger and I have returned to make up for not doing Epic Comic Book Wednesday yesterday. Sorry, 6 people who watch Epic Comic Book Wednesday. So, Roger and I wouldn't want to leave you without any thrilling comic book content this week from my dopey channel. So, we decided we were going to do a comic book graphic novel Hall of Adventure. There you go. You see, comic books and graphic novels, they don't count for that whole 500 book challenge thing. So, a few of those have shown up at the Manor recently, and let's take a look at them. It's thrilling stuff. Let's start right now with Dracula. Dracula. So this is Dracula, the original graphic novel, the original one from the 60s that you probably never heard of. Yes, Dracula. The original graphic novel. So this is awesome. This has an introduction by Christopher Lee, which makes it extra awesome, but it was adapted by Otto Binder, Russ Jones, and Craig Tennis, and the artwork is by Al McWilliams. So that's pretty cool. And it was originally published in paperback, and I think this was the original cover. And I don't know how it was reproduced because we have these long pages here, almost comic strip size pages. So I don't know if they were like on the side in the book because it's just a regular paperback size book. So I don't know, but the artwork is great. It's really, really good. And I haven't actually read this yet, but the artwork is fantastic, and it seems to be a really good adaptation of Dracula. So this is just a really nice book. Very happy to get this one. Yeah, it's excellent. Great artwork by Al McWilliams. And this could be one of the best comic book adaptions of Dracula I've seen. So we'll see once I actually read it instead of just looking at the pretty pictures. But it seems to be really cool. So that's the first thing. Dracula, and of course it's got a Frank Frazetta cover, so that makes it extra awesome. This was from the folks that did Eerie and Creepy magazine back in the olden days. And speaking of horrific stuff, it's the Haunt of Fear. It's the Haunt of Fear. So this is something I'll be reading for my EC Comics videos that I keep threatening to do. I'll do them one of these days, but this is my latest EC Comics arrival. This is The Haunt of Fear, EC Comics Archives, Volume 1. They're doing all of these in paperback now, where they will reprint 6 of the original issues of the comic book from the 1950s. The Haunt of Fear was one of the big 3 horror comic books from EC Comics, along with The Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt. And this was cool because it showcased Ghastly Graham Ingalls. It also has all the cool advertisements from the olden days, but it showcased the artwork of Ghastly Graham Ingalls, who was he just drew the creepiest stuff. Great artist. And perfect for horror comic books. So this is really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Next, and I think this is the only DC thing I have to show you because, their reprint program sucks, so they don't print much of the older stuff that I enjoy, but they did print this a while back. This is Aquaman, Deadly Waters, which was an Aquaman story from, I think it began in 1970, around issue 50 of Aquaman. Let me see if I'm right or wrong. Yeah, Aquaman number 49 starts this off, February 1970. And I didn't actually read these stories when they came out because I wasn't born yet. It's that old. But DC Comics, I have to say, did a really wonderful job reprinting this set of comic books. And they have Aquaman stories in there, but it also has Deadman stories in here, which go along with the Aquaman stories. So you've got some Neil Adams Deadman stories in here, along with the Jim Aparo Aquaman stories. So this is awesome. I was glad to get it. Aquaman, Deadly Waters. Aquaman, everybody's favorite superhero. Right, Roger? Roger, no. Roger says no. I like Aquaman, though. Someday, maybe they'll give us, you know, a Silver Age Aquaman Omnibus. Probably not, though. They've pretty much given up on omnibuses, I think DC Comics has. I think they've got like 3 or 4 coming out this year at most. Oh, well. I've complained about them before, DC Comics. Next, it's the James Bond Omnibus. The James Bond Omnibus. Now, I found out about this book, actually this series of books, there's a few of these, from Andrew Buckle's book reviews. Andrew Buckle book reviews. If you don't watch Andrew Buckle, you should, because his channel is awesome, and I don't know why you're bothering to watch this when you could be watching his channel. I'll link Andrew Buckle's book reviews down below, because he told me about this book, or he showed off this book. Now, this book is from Titan publishes this? Yeah, Titan Books publishes this. And what this is, and you'd never know it from the crappy cover, is this is some of the original James Bond comic strips from the olden days. Now, these adapt the original stories and novels from Ian Fleming, and they did it before the films came out. So these stories told in comic strip form, and they're really cool, tell the stories of Casino Royale, Live and Let Die, Moonraker, Diamonds Are Forever, Dr. No, Goldfinger, a bunch of others, before the films were made. So these were just straight from the books. And so that's really cool. The cover is just something that they could have... I mean, you would have no idea what this book is if you didn't look inside it. It doesn't give you any idea that this is a book of comic strips. I mean, yeah, it says comic strips right there in tiny, tiny lettering. But if you just saw this, you wouldn't know what it was. And if I mean, the cover doesn't tell you anything. It's just like an image they could have gotten from the internet. And the whole line of books I've looked online, they all look... I mean, if I can do a better cover, you guys need to do a better job. I'm just saying. At least, you know, let people know what the heck the book is. That's my 2 cents anyway. But it's awesome. I'm glad they printed it. I mean, it's really cool. It's really cool. So there's that. And now let's go through some of my omnibuses that I got. I got some omnibuses. They're all from Marvel. All Marvel comic omnibuses. Of course, I've shown this already, but I'll show it up again. This is the Frank Miller and Klaus Janson Daredevil Omnibus, the greatest series of Daredevil stories ever done in omnibus format. Yeah, I did. This was my last Epic Comic Book Wednesday, I think. Right, Roger? Wasn't it Daredevil? I think it was. And right after I did that, I figured, you know, I got to get the omnibus. So I ordered it, and it came like the next day. So, yeah, this is an amazing run. An amazing run. So, yeah, this was a good purchase, I think. The Daredevil Omnibus. This one might have a few people scratching their head like, why did you get this? This is Captain Marvel, the first Captain Marvel Omnibus. Now, this is an interesting book. This was an interesting series. Not particularly great, although I did like it, and I liked the artwork in it. It starts off with some Don Heck, but then it moves on by more Don Heck. Well, when does it get to... Gene Colan did some of this, right? Yeah, it moves on to Gene Colan. And it's pretty trippy and weird. Cosmic. And it has the adventures of Marvel's Captain Marvel when, you know, way back in the olden days when he was a dude and wore this funky costume before he got the costume we are more familiar with. But it was an interesting idea. First of all, they only did the comic because they wanted to copyright the name Captain Marvel so they can use it and DC couldn't, because DC had the rights to the character we know as Shazam, who is really Captain Marvel It's all very confusing. But Marvel's Captain Marvel, which in my opinion is not as cool as the original Captain Marvel, was still interesting because he was an alien for another planet who came here to spy for his people for when they eventually conquered our world. And while he was spying, he took on a superhero identity almost by accident. And so that was his cover, you know. He was a bad guy who was acting like a good guy, but it turns out he really is a good guy. It's interesting. And about halfway through this, the whole thing gets rebooted and he gets a new costume and it's a whole thing. But sorry, I got a phone call. I film on my phone and I forgot to. I keep doing this. You gotta remind me, Roger. Anyway, I was talking about Captain Marvel. I like this comic book, even though these early issues of Captain Marvel were frankly a little dumb, but I enjoyed it. Of course I did. I got the Captain Marvel Omnibus. So there's that. Also, I don't know if I showed this at any point, but I'm showing this again. This is Fantastic Four by John Byrne Omnibus. So there are a couple of these out now. A lot of this stuff in this original Fantastic Four Omnibus from John Byrne, which is gigantic. I think he was just doing the artwork in these initial Fantastic Four stories, right? Yeah, Marv Wolfman was doing the scripts. And then later on in the omnibus, he takes over the stories and the art. But a lot of the stories in this came out before I really started collecting the Fantastic Four. But the stories in this one, this is the second volume of the John Byrne Omnibus. These are the stories that I read when I was a teenager, when I was like 13, 14, 15 years old. I'm pretty sure, let me look at the dates. Yeah, 86, 83 through 86, right? Yeah. So, yeah, these were the stories I read, and they were very action-packed, soap opera kind of adventures from John Byrne. And I remember really, really liking them. And Fantastic Four sort of became my favorite comic book, or my favorite Marvel comic book, right around the time that I was reading these issues. And they're all reproduced wonderfully. Both these omnibus volumes are just huge. They're gigantic books, which I like. I like the big omnibus format. But I haven't actually read these stories since they first came out. So I haven't read these since I was a teenager. So it'll be interesting to return to them and see how they held up. John Byrne was not as good a writer as he was an artist, but I remember really loving that stuff, so we'll see. Also, I don't know if I showed this at all. I might have at some point, but I brought it out just because I couldn't remember. This is the Invaders Omnibus, which has the entire run of Invaders comics, the team of World War II era Golden Age heroes. Got the original Human Torch, we've got Submariner, we've got Captain America, and this has every single issue of this comic from the 1970s. And it's really cool, so I was really happy to get it. I've never read any of these. So I was very happy that they reprinted this in omnibus form. What else did I get? Well, I get Epic Collections every week, pretty much. And so here's a few of them. This is the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, and now the Wolverine. Yes, the Wolverine, originally illustrated by the great Herb Trimpe, made his appearance in the Hulk. Let's see if I could find him. Okay, here he is. See if I can get the cover. Okay, so this is his first appearance there, the Wolverine, jumping onto the scene there, looking quite different than we usually see the Wolverine. There he is on the splash page of the next issue where he's fighting the Hulk. That was it. That was the beginning of the Wolverine. And so that story is in here with just a bunch of other great Herb Trimpe drawn Hulk comics. I know Steve Donahue out there who might be watching this is not a big fan of Herb Trimpe, but I really liked Herb Trimpe's run on the Hulk. I liked it. A lot of people liked it, actually. It's not just me. It's not just me, Roger. Roger liked it too. Roger says, I liked it. That's what he's saying right now. The Hulk. The Incredible Hulk. This is actually volume 7 of the Epic Collections with stories from 1974 through 1976. So there's that. And then there's a bunch of 90s stuff. But before I get to the 90s stuff, I did get Ant-Man Giant Man volume 2, which I never thought I would see. They did an Ant-Man Giant Man volume a few years ago. And I'm actually reading that right now. I haven't had a chance to read many comics this week. I was too busy reading that Sword and Sorcery anthology for February fantasy stories. But I'll get back on my comic book reading real soon. But anyway, Ant-Man Giant Man Volume 2 with special appearance from Black Colossus is in this. Black Colossus, who you probably don't remember. But, you know, that's him right there. And he's in this volume. This has Ant-Man, Giant Man, and Black Colossus stories from 1964 through 1979. So, you know, Ant-Man, Giant Man, they didn't have their own regular comic. So, you know, they were in this, they were just kind of like in different issues. Like this comic was Marvel Feature featuring Ant-Man, which has stories illustrated by Herb Trimpe. Hey, how about that? The great Herb Trimpe does Ant-Man stories too. So there you go. Ant-Man, Giant Man. Now we get some 90s stuff. And I left one out. I forgot the Thor. I got some 90s Thor, but I didn't bring that out. I'll show that next time. The next time I do this, if you actually want to see another one of these. But anyway, we've got some Spider-Man. This is The Hero Killers, which has Spider-Man comics from 1992. It is very, very 90s, this comic. Very 90s artwork. Of course, we have to have Venom in there because it's the 90s and it's Spider-Man. Can I actually get to a page with Spider-Man actually in it? Oh yeah, there's Spider-Man looking about as 90s as you can look. And yeah, there's Spider-Man again. But this also has a graphic novel in here, does it? I think it does. Maybe not. I thought it did. Maybe I'm dreaming. Look, more Spider-Man. This actually has a ton of different Spider-Man comics. Amazing Spider-Man Soul of the Hunter. Yeah, so that's a graphic novel that's in here. And we've got Spectacular Spider-Man Annual, Web of Spider-Man Annual, New Warriors Annual, and a few issues of Spider-Man are in this. And then we have its sequel, which also came out, The Invasion of the Spider Slayers. This is volume 24, 1992 to 1993. Comic books from Spider-Man. Again, very, very 90s. There's Venom once again. Then I've got some Doctor Strange. This is Doctor Strange from 92 through 94. This is the volume 11, Doctor Strange. It's actually really cool. This has some Roy Thomas stories in here. This was a good time, actually, the early 90s was a good time for Doctor Strange. I remember the stories actually being really cool. Got Nightmare there. And I remember really looking forward to this comic book. Again, it's another comic book that I haven't read since the initial issues came out. So it's some stuff I really want to revisit. And finally, you thought it would never end, but it has, and it's ending with the X-Men. Sorry, another interruption. We're very popular today. So, the X-Men. The X-Men is the last thing I have to show you today. This is the Executioner's Song, volume 21. The Epic Collections for the X-Men have only gone up to volume 21 so far, which is stories from 1992 to 1993. It'll be interesting to see how long these go. I mean, how far into the 90s will the Epic Collections be published for X-Men? For Daredevil, they've gone all the way to 98. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how far they go with the X-Men. But this is probably the most 90s comic I have. It's so 90s. It's just so 90s. The 90s were an interesting time for comics. That's for sure. But it's cool. It's the X-Men. And so I'm happy to see all this stuff reprinted. It's pretty cool. Yeah. 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 It's very, very 90s X-Men too. So this will be fun to finally get to whenever the heck I finally get to it. I think that's all I have to show you for today. That's not everything either. I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting. But, you know, if you ever want to see another one of these, just let me know and I'll do another comic book graphic novel, Hall of Adventure. Okay, guys, thanks for stopping by. I think I've actually got a tag video to do tomorrow. So catch me for that. I will see you next time.